We're carrying on in our series in the Gospel of John, but I am wearing a Christmas colored shirt. That's something, right? Hey, we'll tie it in. We'll tie it in somehow, okay? In this chapter, we've got the second chapter of this dialogue, this really long dialogue. Actually, it's a monologue. A couple times the apostles respond or ask questions. But this is a huge, huge bunch of material that we have about Jesus teaching his disciples on the day that we consider the last day of the Lord's Supper, right? Except there is no mention of the Lord's Supper in John. We said that just to shock you. I think John was trying to shock us into saying that there were some important things that we needed to hear and that his listeners needed to hear. So, we're in the middle of this. We've already talked about Jesus predicting his betrayal. And we talked about the fact that Jesus knows. He knows people's hearts. He knows that there are people sitting in churches all over the world that aren't with him, and he knows that. We talked about Peter last week. And Peter saying, you know, I'll never betray you. And he said, no, Peter, before the cock crows 3 times, you're going to betray me. And that's all he says. Now, those are very disturbing things, right? It's a very disturbing time. Obviously, Jesus was very upset. And he took the time to wash their feet, to show them what it meant to be a servant, to show them what God's attitude and spirit really is. In the midst of all that, in chapter 4, verse 1, he says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." What does that tell you? Their hearts were troubled, right? It's a troubling time. I mean, someone's going to betray him, and he just told Peter, you're going to mess up. He says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house. Otherwise, I would have told you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going. Don't let your hearts be troubled. I think there's a very important lesson in this for us. He didn't say, don't let anybody trouble your hearts. Right? He brought it back to that personal responsibility that we talked about before. Don't let your heart be troubled. Why? Well, the answer is trust, right? He says, you trust in God. It's another one of those translations where it could be translated, you trust in God, trust in me, or trust in God, trust in me also, right? I think he's saying to them, you trust in God. Trust in me. He's going to go on and say that when you see me, you see God. The same recurring theme that we've heard over and over in the Gospel of John. So, you've got this, don't let your hearts be troubled, and you've got the answer. Trust. Believe. Have faith. We've talked about that. Those are all synonyms for the same word in Greek. One word. Trust. A reason to believe. You have a reason to believe. You have a reason to understand somebody desires what's best for you. Trust in God. He desires what's best for you. Trust also in me. And then he says something really amazing. And this is where we're going to tie it into Christmas, okay? He said, there's a lot of room in my Father's house. And I'm going to go prepare a place for you. Now, you remember the Christmas story? You remember when they get to Bethlehem? And they're looking for a place to stay, and it says there were no rooms at the inn. And so they ended up in a manger. You ever been someplace where there wasn't room for you? Yeah, maybe it was around this time of year. You know when you had relatives come? Guess who had to leave their room? and you start eyeing couches and competing with your brothers for the couches, right? Because there's no room for you anymore. You may end up in the corner in a sleeping bag. There's no room. Jesus said, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in me. I've got this thing covered. There's a lot of room. There's room for everybody up there. There's room. And I'm going to go and I'm going to prepare a place for you. Does that mean that the next couple of days are going to be a breeze for him? Does it mean that the next couple of days are going to be a breeze for the disciples? Does it mean that the next 30 years or 40 years is going to be a piece of cake for some of those guys that were sitting there? No, but don't let your hearts be troubled. Because there's something very important that's already taken care of. There's something that you need to remember. There's a lot of room where God is, and Jesus is preparing a place for you. And when you get there, they're not going to look to the registry and say, sorry, we don't have your name. Remember one time Amy and I went on vacation down to Mexico. And we flew to this island. We were very excited. We found out that the hotel we booked in wasn't open. It hasn't been rebuilt after the hurricane. Amy said, well, so we went to Mexico, we're homeless. It's a very disturbing feeling, right? Got on the phone and we called Travelocity, and it was, hey, it's not going to be like that for you. No matter when you get there, they're going to say, oh man, we got a room. You're ready. We can wait for you. Don't let anyone, don't let your heart be troubled. Trust. You have a reason to expect. You have hope. You understand that God desires better things for you. You understand because of what we do on Sunday mornings. That sacrifice has been made. That's taken care of. And Jesus said, don't let your hearts get troubled. Trust. You trust in God, trust in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house. If that wasn't true, I would have told you so. And then verse 5 is Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going. So how can we know the way? And here you have probably one of the most famous verses in John. Jesus answered, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Jesus said to him over and over again, you see me, you see the Father. You know me, you know the Father. I am how you're going to understand your Creator. I am. I am. That's that. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am. Before Moses was, I am. And here it is, I am the way. I am the truth and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. If you have any other concepts of the Father that don't coincide with Jesus, where'd you get them? Where did you come up with those? So, Philip said, it's his turn, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. I don't know if you ever got a chance to teach a class and you told students there's no such thing as a stupid question. Because you really want to know whether they understand or not. But sometimes you want to say, that's really a stupid question. I mean, Jesus just got through saying this amazing thing. And Philip just kind of checks in and says, oh yeah, okay, fine. Why don't you show us the Father?